Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone had a nice lunch. So thank you for coming to this session. My name's David Quilty from the Guild, and I'm pleased to be introducing this session and our speaker. So as you can see on the screen, the title of this business session is "Are your competitors using technology more effectively than you?" So it's very much about the effective use of technology to the benefit of your pharmacy and your patients. And we're pleased today to have the CEO of MedAdvisor, Robert Reid, as our speaker. So Robert probably doesn't need too much introduction for many of you, but I'll just quickly tell you a little bit about him. Robert comes from a diverse commercial background covering strategy consulting, private equity, as well as senior management positions in both medium and large companies. Prior to joining MedAdvisor, Robert was Managing Director of the Australian private equity arm of Herbert Management Corporation, and before this he was the Director of Commercial Strategy and Operations at GSK. Robert was appointed the role of into the position as CEO of MedAdvisor in 2015, and he successfully led the organisation through its public listing on the Australian Stock Exchange in late 2015. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Robert to come up and speak to us. Thanks.
Thanks, David, and welcome everyone to our session today. When we were thinking about our session, we really reflected on the fact that I think most people are aware these days that technology is an imperative part of any business that is run, and often the questions we get asked are really about how do I use it most effectively, and what, there's just so much out there, so what do I need to do and focus on and try and distill it down for us. So really what we're going to try and do today is talk about some of the key thematics and a couple of takeaway points that we think will be really helpful for you as you think about how you apply technology into your pharmacy and try and deliver better health outcomes for your customers and therefore better revenue. Just in terms of a quick show of hands, I'm always curious to see who feels that they are using technology in their pharmacy better than their competitors on average. Can I get a show of hands? Who would say they're better than average? So I think I saw three. Okay, so I'll reveal a couple of stats through the session, and hopefully you can work out where you might sit and where the opportunity might exist for your business. So if I just so just in terms of context setting, I think everyone's aware that there's a lot of rapid change going on in the pharmacy market, and that's clearly one of the key topics that are talked about at events like this and in the media and the pharmacy media. And we're seeing changes all the time. We're seeing it with reducing remuneration from dispensing fees, and obviously competitors being aggressive out there in the marketplace. You've got both big box competitors in the pharmacy space, but you're also dealing with your front of shop competitors who include supermarkets and online. So it becomes quite a broad audience of people that you're competing with as a pharmacy. And in fact, now you're competing with companies like Amazon who have no physical stores in Australia, but they are a competitor to some of your product range that you stock in your pharmacies. We obviously are aware that there's significant change that will occur as we go through the 7 CPA and with some of the changes that the government are keen to put in, like electronic prescribing, and what are the impacts that might have on your business. So the technology change is obviously a constant and something that we need to really react to. I think one of the advantages that pharmacists have in many respects are that they play an absolutely critical role in primary care, and I think this is something that has been completely understated in the commentary that you see in the press. It's a wonderful place for access to basic primary care, and as David and the Guild often advocate, there's patients visit 14 or 15 times a year to their local pharmacists, and pharmacists are ranked as one of the most trusted practitioners or vocations or professionals in Australia. So from a place of access and from a place of trust is a really strong foundation to build a business. On top of that, most pharmacists also identify themselves as healthcare practitioners. So this opportunity to be a convenient access point for healthcare delivery and primary healthcare delivery at MedAdvisor, we think is a really important place for the industry to be focusing on, and for your business to really be thinking about how do you transition to. And the Guild and others will be advocating on many occasions to broaden the scope of practice so that you can deliver more services inside your pharmacy and make more money out of those services and help more patients. But in order to do that, you're going to need to get some fundamentals right. We know that the pharmacy employment market can be challenging, and the pharmacy workflow is very busy. It's often coming at peak times of the day. It's intense. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that patients don't see, or in some cases don't necessarily value. We hear a lot from pharmacists that they feel underpaid as an employee pharmacist, that I'm not getting enough for what I have to deal with on a daily basis. And so when I'm feeling like that, how do I engage with my customers? And that's certainly something that is a consideration for the industry. And so we believe that there are a number of things that we can, as an industry, help to smooth out some of that demand and help attack some of the challenges that do exist in that context. Because they are the face of your business. Pharmacists are the face of your successful business. If you get that right, and pharmacists engaging really well with your patients, the loyalty that you're going to engender from those customers, I think, will really step up. And what we know is that consumers are looking for you as pharmacists to do that. They're actually wanting you to lead that conversation about health and help with the initial diagnosis and screening and pointing them in the right direction. And what we see through our MedAdvisor cohort is that the pharmacists that are doing that on a consistent basis are not only being able to identify more issues with their patients, but they're selling more. They're delivering more services than the average. And what we see is about a 25% increase in both services and add-on scripts. So how can you use technology to help that? What are the things that you can start to do to lay a base and a foundation for you? What we're going to talk to today is really about leveraging the technology to replace or reduce some of the menial tasks and pressures that you're seeing on a daily basis. I was just mentioning to David before, as we were talking, that there are a number of pharmacies that we know of who have either Guildcare or MedAdvisor who still use paper forms for meds checks. So you just think, how does that happen? The technology sits there, but it's not being used. And how can you make sure that you're getting the efficiencies through the business in order to deliver more services? Because if it's too hard, if there's too much friction in it, it's not going to get done. And I think that's something that is an important takeaway. By leveraging the technology and reducing some of those either those menial tasks or that manual task that you're doing, you're also you're giving yourself time back, and that's time back that you can spend with your patients to focus on health awareness or driving more services. And I think the other part of our conversation today will really be about leveraging data within your business to drive more services style business as well for your customer base. So I think the other point for me to make is that technology that exists today to help has been around in many cases for 8-10 years. So it's not something necessarily that's new. It might be something as simple as an SMS reminder service that's been in the market for circa 10 years. Yet we see some of the best pharmacy groups have on average about 25 times more patients on an SMS reminder service than the national average. So that execution is key. And I think that's probably one of the key takeouts for us, and really trying to make that point clear, is that it's not necessarily just simply about having the platform available to you. It's about how you use it. And there are 3 specific steps that we want to talk about today and go into a little bit more detail. And the first is batch processing. So being able to use and smooth out the workflow that's coming into your business. That you can leverage the data that exists within your dispense system or your business already to provide better and more tailored services to your customers. And that by doing that, those first 2 steps, you'll also have more time to deliver some of these value-added services, or even just relationship improvements with your existing customer base. And that's essentially what we'll talk about. One of the things that, just in terms of data that we can share, is that on average, MedAdvisor pharmacies have about 400 patients on a reminder service, whether that be app or SMS. So that's about the average. So if you've got more than that, you're better than average for those 3 people who put their hand up, and there might be more that have others. And the best pharmacies in our network average about 25% of their total patient pool on a reminder service. But we've seen some up in the 40s and above. Scripts dispensed in the last week were dispensed to people on a reminder service, MedAdvisor, namely, in our case. All right, so empower customers to enable batch script processing. So effectively, what are we talking about here? And this is this routine menial task concept that I've referred to at the front. And probably the best analogy that I could find when thinking about this is the banking sector. And it's not that long ago we all had to queue up in front of a teller to get our passbook stamped and get our balance and do everything manually. And the advent of mobile banking and internet banking changed the demands on those tellers. It actually meant that a lot of that work was no longer necessary. And what did that then create? Created the opportunity to change the way stores and branches were actually laid out in order to offer better service to their customer base. Now, you might think by having less tellers or less banking staff, or in this case, pharmacists and pharmacy staff, that you actually deliver a worse service. And that may not be true. In the banking situation, the online banking customers are the most satisfied customers. Customer satisfaction in aggregate lifted substantially through the changes to mobile and internet banking. And so by leveraging technology to automate some of those and push some of the burden back onto the user, they're able to take away some of the manual processing that was required, and therefore both make customers happier and give them more convenient access to the information they wanted or needed, or the transaction that they needed to have done. And I think there are some analogies, certainly in the pharmacy world, where you think about your floor space, and you've got, roughly 65% of your floor space is dedicated to your front of shop. Now, that's a lot of rent, that's a lot of wage cost, and it's a lot of competition in that area of your business as well. They're the things that tend to be able to be competed with the people I mentioned at the start, your supermarkets, your Amazons, your big box discounters and so on. So by moving through this process of getting more routine tasks automated or streamlining your workflow, you'll be able to consider alternatives for how you use that space in a more effective way. So some of the data that we've seen is quite interesting, to say the least. Glenn Guilfoyle, who many of you know of from The Next Level, calculates that for pharmacies that are doing about 300 scripts a day or 100,000 scripts a year, that every week there's about 78 hours where scripts have been taken in by a pharmacist and then are left waiting or not being processed because a pharmacist is on call, as he calls it. that they've made it, someone's interrupted them or they've chosen to do another task. Meanwhile, the customer stays waiting. And his view is that by doing this, you're breaking up the efficiency of the script processing, because you're coming back to it. You're going away and coming back, going away, coming back. And by doing that, you're incurring more time that potentially may not need to be there. He calculates, and we'll show some data on this a little bit later in the presentation, that the average script waits per customer for about 5 minutes. And about half of that time is what he calls white time, or it's time that nothing's happening to that script. So when the average customer walks in with 2 or 3 scripts, that can be a significant amount of time in some cases. So what does this translate to from a customer perspective? Well, clearly frustrated customers, and I think everyone was aware of the Kiss FM DJ who went on a public rant about waiting times at her chemist, and that was the pharmacy industry not representing and thinking about the customer as a valuable part of that process and how much their time is valued. And it's interesting, this shift that we're seeing in customer expectations, and it's not just happening in pharmacy, it's happening in almost every healthcare domain that you look at. And there was a guy called Eric Topol who wrote a book called Doctor, the Patient Will See You Now, which was very much around the democratisation of data, the lifting expectations of patients as to what they expect from their healthcare practitioners. And that shift in narrative is occurring, and it's occurring in the pharmacy world. The expectations of your customers are raising because they're retailers. They engage with retail in lots of different contexts. So they're not necessarily seeing pharmacy as a different category. And so if we can help workflow balance and make sure that orders are coming in at a more organised way, it will allow you to get more time back. So one of the things that, talking about data, you can start thinking about is, when is the most busiest times in my pharmacies? Now, you probably know all this anecdotally, but we had a look on Google, and you can do this for your own pharmacy and have a look at both the average waiting times and when people are coming into your store when it's most busy. And there are gaps. There are times where it's really intense, and there are times where it's obviously a lot quieter. And what we're really strongly advocating is that you think about using a tool like MedAdvisor to encourage your customers to order in advance. So don't walk in with 3 or 5 scripts at peak time. Order in advance. And what we've seen from our data is that more than half of scripts are all ordered when the shop is closed. So imagine what that could do for your workflow. The more patience you got on doing that, you could actually come in at this 9 o'clock time, or even before that, before the shop opens, and dispense them all in one go in a batch processing. So you're not having that 2-minute idle per script. You're just going all the way through. And then you get your time back. So I think when you look at the data, for some of the stores that we have in our network, we're seeing more than 30 orders every day coming in, being processed before the shops open, and that's quite a powerful thing, we believe. And so the more patients you get on, it becomes a virtuous cycle, and encouraging them to order in advance. And so then you start to think, okay, well, I'm getting a little bit more capacity and time back. So what can I think about from an organisation of my business? So I touched on the physical presence and the ability to maybe reimagine that. With this global shift to governments remunerating more heavily around services as opposed to just dispensing fees, is there an opportunity to set up your environment more favourably to being able to handle services and consultations? Not all pharmacies are set up for that today. but can you use this as an avenue to allow that to occur? I think when you are doing that, you can also be more encouraged to really push both the 6 CPA services that are there and valuable, and non-government services, and your own pharmacy banner services, and any other service that you might feel is valuable to your patient cohort. So I think one of the other bits of data I wanted to share really is also when you're thinking about who you sign up for reminder services, you can actually look at the demographics that we already have to realise that these graphs here, which you probably can't read, is 40 to 49, 50 to 59, 60 to 69, and it's a percentage of our patient pool in each category. And you can see very large concentration in the 40 to 70 zone is where most of our customers exist today. Now, we have some 90 pluses, and we have some at the other end as well, usually in the cared for situation. But what this really plays to is a couple of things. One is we know 50% of Australians have a chronic disease, but more importantly, 40% of over 45s have multiple chronic diseases. So probably they're looking at a number of medications at any time that they're ordering every month. So they are most likely coming in with a number of scripts, or that you've got those scripts on file. But you can see that there are people on either side that you might think, hey, does the one girl on the contraceptive pill, does she need a reminder? Well, probably. And if you can lock in that script into your pharmacy and put them on the app, we know from our data that patients are 97% loyal to the nominated pharmacy that patient has been signed up to. So rather than get that patient to then go off and go to the most convenient one when she's next closest to work, she comes back to you because she can order in advance. She can go and pick it up when it's convenient to her. And so that you are playing to that convenience strength that the technology can enable for you and for your business. So I guess the importance of the message here really is that the technology is able to be utilised by most demographics. And because of carer mode, you actually can go all the way up and all the way down. So there should really be virtually no one who you want to keep as a regular customer to your pharmacy that you don't have on a reminder service. And that will free up your time. So how can you leverage data and automation to drive more services? I think this is a fact that really annoys me in the market, that the meds checks, which are here, they've been negotiated by the Guild to go and help pharmacy transition to a services-based business model, to play to your strengths as clinicians. Yet and still, only 3 out of 20 are done on average, roughly. Meaning that the money's there, you've just got to get out there and do it. And it's interesting when you look through some of the data that's publicly available, some of the reasons why it's not done because I'm too busy. I'm too busy out the back dispensing. I don't have time once I've dispensed to go and engage with that patient because they've already been waiting 5, 6, 10 minutes. And I don't want to spend another 10 minutes talking to them about a meds check. So I let it go this time and I'll get back to it next time. And I think in one of the early trials, there's of pharmacies who put their hands up to trial meds checks in 2012. There was still a very small percentage, I think single-digit percentage of meds checks that were available that were actually claimed. So the frustration here for you as pharmacists must be, how do I get more meds checks? And my numbers suggest that there's 1.2 million patients a year who are eligible for a meds check who don't get one. And that's using the 20 cap as the key metric there. Now, talking to one of our pharmacy groups, they were saying, yeah, this 20 number, yeah, we know that, but our stores average 60 meds checks per month. And I said, well, why are you doing more than your cap? Because is that work wasted? Why are you doing that? And the response was, no, this is a critical service to my most valued customers, that I treat them like a VIP, and throughout our whole group, we focus on delivering meds checks whether we get paid for them or not, because those patients become more loyal and they become more trusted with us. So again, yes, the 20 is there. Yes, that's aspirational for some pharmacies to ascribe to, but it shouldn't be seen as necessarily the cap. You can make a business decision to do more to drive your business further. So personalising the experience in any retail context is becoming a much more important aspect of driving your business. And we're seeing even in online businesses solely, now Amazon are having 34% of their sales coming from personalised recommendations based on what you've most recently bought, based on what they deem you're going to be liking based on your consumer behaviour. And now they've grown to 34% of their recommendations are coming from personalisation. And we strongly believe that the data that exists within your pharmacy can be leveraged to create those personal recommendations. Now, there are a number of data providers that are out there, as you well know, who can provide reporting and insights into your pharmacy. Of course, MedAdvisor has our own business insights tool that can be used to drill down and understand a little bit more about your business. But there is a wealth of data here. And what you can uncover is which areas of your business have the highest gaps in adherence. Which disease states, which medication types, where can I target this? And then if you can link your patients to that data so that you can stimulate demand for some of the services or offerings that you have, then you create a virtuous cycle. And what we see across our network of stores is that linking of a patient to your insight is pretty poor. So you would imagine that, well, certainly in a case like Amazon, they have 100% of their customers' digital contact details. Every single customer of theirs, they've got their details. But across the pharmacy market, we see about 10% of your patient base where there's digital contact detail. So it's kind of fighting a little bit with one hand behind your back, because you need to wait until that patient comes into your store to talk to them again, or you can write them a letter based on the address that you've got. But if you want to promote something, you're again left to leveraging the space that you've got in your catalogues and your front of shop opportunities. But if you've got their digital contact details, you can be more proactive about the services that can be provided to them, obviously with careful view as to how you use that. So the technology is there to link it, and what we've tried to do in the way that we've approached this problem is to put what we call the Health Services Hub together, which effectively identifies the patients that you have in your dispense database that are eligible for particular services. And that might be meds checks or 6 CPA programs, and allow you to focus on the ones that are going to be best for your business. And not only just say, hey, we've got a lot of patients that are eligible for inhaler technique or whatever it might be, but really say, this is something I want to focus on, and next time I'm in, I want to offer this to, next time that patient's in, I want to offer it to people. And we try and enable that through the use of notifications when that patient's in there. But you can also, if the health services offer where you've got consent from your patients, offer that service to the patient, and you can invite them via the app or SMS, so that you're not writing a letter, that you're not waiting for them to walk in, that you're being proactive about how you stimulate demand for your services in your business. And I think that's an opportunity to promote things all the way through to flu, or, through to meds checks once a year, and have the algorithms do the hard work for you. You don't have to think about it all the time. Let the algorithms do the hard work. You say, this is these are the patients that I want to be notified about it, and then be able to record and claim those professional services when you've done them, whether they're 6 CPA or manufacturer or other programs. And I think that point, as I mentioned at the start, the number of people that we come across who are still using paper to record their professional services just astounds me. Even when they've got GuildCare or MedAdvisor in there, they're still using paper, and you just think this is crazy. And it is about execution. So if you're not doing it, learn it. And the software providers that are in the market all have help desks, and they all will hold your hand through the process to make sure that you understand how to use the software. In many cases, there are videos and how-to and quick start guides and frequently asked questions that can allow you to do more effective utilisation of the platform that you pay for every month. I think one of the other areas that the data can help you is understand where the staffing needs to be optimised, because you can see dispense patterns and where the heat maps are and all that sort of stuff, which can inform business decisions into how you optimally staff your business, so you can handle the peaks that your business has. So clearly, stores that do this, and we're referencing our network here, but they can really drive more demand for professional service. And I think this is really an important part of what we want to create and make sure that you guys as pharmacists are really creating that stimulation of demand for professional services, so you can transition your business to absorb some of the changes that are occurring in the remuneration and how you've been remunerated in the past. We see about 3 times as many meds checks than the average, which is good, but it's still halfway there in terms of the cap. So there's still a good distance to travel before people are really doing this on a routine basis. One of the interesting stats we pulled out was that 71% of clinical interventions are recorded in under a minute through +1. So that's a really interesting statistic, that if this is easy, you'll do more of it. And that can drive your business as well. And we're not saying we're perfect by any stretch of the imagination. It's something that we want to keep improving and make easier and easier for you, so that you can get in there and deliver more. And obviously the claiming. The claiming can be a hard process, a difficult process. We hear stories of people spending a day a month doing their 6 CPA claiming, which just sounds horrific. So how can we and others streamline that in a more efficient way, so that you can build up this volume of services, but also then claim them really easily so you can get paid. Now the third, just keeping an eye on the time, the third opportunity is to really be proactive in your selling and your health counselling. And this data comes from Glenn Guilfoyle as well, from the Next Level. But as I mentioned at the start, you can see this bar here, this orange bar, more than half the time that the script is waiting, it's actually not being worked on. So that's certainly an area that needs to be addressed, so you're engaging your customers more effectively. When they are being engaged, the amount of time, this big bar here, he describes that as value neutral engagement. I'm not exactly sure how he defines value neutral, but I've got some ideas. And this area here is a little bit more of the proactive or the medicines counselling area. And what's interesting is when you look at the proactive health counselling or proactive solution selling, so that's kind of going slightly above the medicines piece, it's about 13 seconds on average. So again, it's not a lot of time that on average that people are investing into this. So we clearly think that if you can reorganise the way that the scripts are processed in the first place, getting that batch processing ready, as all those people come in at the peak time, here's your scripts, let me talk to you about some of the things that you should be aware of about either your medication or some of the services we offer, or other complementary add-ons to their basket that are going to help that patient. So I think that's a strong opportunity. I think, you know, I've kind of touched on this already, but really getting to that apex of the triangle is where you're pharmacist-led. You're down the front. You're engaging with your customers. You're helping them out, and that's going to drive loyalty, and it's certainly going to, we strongly believe, drive increased sales for your business. The pop-up opportunity, I think, is a real one. We find mixed engagement with pop-ups. So sometimes it's really well used, other times it's not, maybe with a locum pharmacist or people who aren't as aligned, maybe not using it as much, but they are there as a prompt to think about, is this person eligible for a particular service? So there are various programs that are run by manufacturers to engage people in pharmacy-led initiatives. And whether that's a pharmacist, what we call a pharmacist intervention program, or a sign-up incentive, or whatever it might be, they're there because they've got a patient support program delivered via digital methodologies. Sign patients up to it, and we'll pay you money. And that's coming from the manufacturers. So I think those sort of areas are opportunities to build into that services. But again, they're easier to run the more patients you've got on the platform. So in summary, I think, the key we feel is to really start at the basics. Get people on the script reminder services. Get them ordering in advance. That's going to give you back time. So if you can take back some of that 2 minutes of idle processing time and redeploy that to proactive counselling and engagement with that customer, you're actually not spending an extra minute in store, and you're doing your level of value add to that customer is huge. It's a big step up. One thing I didn't mention at the start was that we've recently been doing customer focus groups with patients, with MedAdvisor patients and non-MedAdvisor patients. And what we've found is that a large number of them were saying, I don't necessarily see a big difference between one pharmacy and the next. I go there, I get stuff dispensed, and then I'm gone. The older ones, they do see a bigger difference because they've got more complex conditions. And when we unpicked this a little bit, it was because they don't see the pharmacist. So they may have liked the girl at the desk or the pharmacy assistant. They may have liked some engagement, or it's convenient. It's close to home, it's close to work. And that was the reason why they'd chosen some pharmacies. And we think this is a really missed opportunity because there is so much great value that can be added through the pharmacy context that some customer pools are not valuing yet, and maybe not seeing enough of. So by getting more time back into your day, you'll be able to deliver more services that way. I think we strongly believe that the data that you've got can be repackaged and purposed to drive your business harder and faster, and make sure that you're delivering more valuable services to your customer base. And certainly, use that time that you get back for proactive counselling. So that is the end of my presentation, and certainly like to thank you all. And I don't know whether we've got time for questions.
One or two questions, because we've got 5 more minutes or so. Do we have any questions for Robert?
There's one down the front, David.
I'm not sure if we've got a mic or... You want to get one of those?
Yeah, it's on.
My question is, the MedAdvisor, is it good for the people that they, let's say, go to the doctor on the day and have the original script?
Yes.
So how it actually help with that situation if they come from the doctor's surgery straight away to the pharmacy? So how this program will help?
That's a really good question, and something that we see is not that well used in our app. It's a tool we call Snap and Send. So basically, as you get your paper script, you take photo of it, and you send it off to your favourite pharmacy. And it comes into the +1 console as a script with electronically, and then you walk in with a physical script as you go through. We also have a website called skipthequeue.com.au that allows anyone who's not a MedAdvisor pharmacy to take a photo of a script and select their pharmacy and send it straight to them.
Excellent. Okay, well, unless there's another question, we might wrap up there. And thank you very much, Robert. Very informative.
Thank you. Thanks.